Very nice. The two first pages are always the same. So, somebody in the chat. Okay, Panos. Okay, if I don't see the chat and somebody else sees it, and it's important, you just interrupt. We go slowly so you can actually. So 1 second. Okay. Again, with my notes, I'm going to be saying this all the time. You just take a habit with your notes, please. And what I want to do, if I had time, I would go very slowly with the whole history of costume. What I do here is that today, and maybe the next class, because it's too long, this presentation, we need to have an idea of how costumes evolved. Many of you already know, but it's very to the point, so people that don't know, they can research further. And from all the next classes, we will be analyzing all the eras, so don't worry. We will start analyzing all the eras in relation to theater costumes specifically. But I need an idea, and this presentation, not exactly like this, I did some part of it last year when we were in Uganda for the project. And so there's a bit of everything in here. And any one of you that has some information related or some other images that you might find interesting, please send them. Please, we will have some discussion in the end. So for me, it's a history of costume. You could buy a book. It's a theory you could have. Not everything is on the internet, but you could buy a book of history of art or history of costume and start reading it. Of course, if somebody goes about slowly and you need to have assignments, it's different. But here we're focusing on theater. But I cannot exclude all the eras. We need to understand a bit that whatever is around us, the very impressive and well-known designers, theaters that we see, films that we see, they started with the same idea. They had to research, they had to have ideas, they talked with a director, and they came up with a specific concept. So in general, when we talk about history of costume, unfortunately in Europe, and the other countries in the big universities, we always say the Western world, which is quite small, okay? It's not correct. But for me, I try to go around and have all the relations that needed. So it's visual. There's lots of theory we could have and we could read. I'm starting. So one question that you would probably have is photos. Okay. In general, Panos, in general, if you see something and you have some more ideas, as you know, for people that have been through history of costume, most of things must be well known, but there's theater involved in here. So later you might search for something, like you search for the films, and you might find something that I don't have here. So just keep a note, and we can even talk about it at the end. So if we wanted to ask ourselves, when do we talk about a theater costume for the first time? Okay, the first time will be ancient Greece. Okay, I will tell you in the era of Greece that whoever invented the plays, the comedies, the tragedies, thought that these were events and rituals, and they had some kind of made-up costumes. But just keep in mind that we need to address theater costume, I think, after the Renaissance. And if we want to see when we had costume designers, we might go even after maybe 1900. So we're just going to start. This is even now, you might be amazed, but anything that has to do with the past, people love it. And if it has to do with theater, and events. So there are contemporary festivals in Europe that have to do with pagan rituals. So any kind of rituals in all the world, their specific costume. So, and these are very dreamy and very theater-like. So this is a picture of something that is happening in Europe, let's say. Now, sorry, I need to be here. So what are we doing today? We're going to see the eras from ancient times until today, until the 1900s. Then you will continue that later a bit. Today, about 1900, let's say. So it's a concise history of dressing, what people wore actually, and it correlates with theater, with films, with many things, with art. And we are connecting because we have participants from everywhere, not only Europe. So things that we know in Europe and in fashion, we are connecting it also with other continents. And I'm always choosing images. When I choose an image, please, somebody needs to mute, and I don't think I can. I did it. Okay. Sorry. So when I'm putting images here, I'm very careful to put things that I believe that you know. So we are focusing in images that from somehow you know, like Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin is very well known. It's important that you have some visual connections. So we're looking at symbols, we're looking at idols as characters always, specific forms. We are thinking why it's important to dress. When we are dressing ourselves, we are dressing somebody else, we are creating a character. This is all you will be hear from me, all these classes. So what it is to create an image for someone, a style. So, so in the fields of theater, film, fashion, and the arts, there's always costumes. There's always made up costumes, artistic costumes for many uses. If it's a play, it's an installation, anything you can imagine. So when we are creating something, whatever is in your mind, it's very personal. So you have always to think we are expressing ourselves through an image, you're expressing somebody else, a character of a film or a costume. So I'm always connecting. So this is the first era that we ever talk in books of history of costume, ancient Mesopotamia. It's not easy to find films of that era, yes, if it's related to Christ, maybe. But there is an iconic costume and a wonderful image. Unfortunately, the picture is not very good, and there's not much material on the internet, but it's Maria Callas as Medea. And Medea is a very well-known character, as you all know. So her costume is very similar and very iconic to the era. It's very symbolic. It looks a lot like a costume of I would say, of a priest. This hat that you see here, it's something dressing the head like this. It's very common in many, many eras. Wearing so much jewelry or having this shape here, you might be finding it from ancient times priest to our contemporary priest. You might be finding it in rituals everywhere in all the continents, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in many places. So keep your thoughts concentrated. Keep your thoughts concentrated of what this reminds you every time you see something. So let's analyze Medea, who is a very important character in a play. So the era is by itself, great. So the era is before Christ. It's in the two valleys where all civilization started. Mesopotamia, the Greek word, or this word means between two rivers, two big rivers. So this is when we first record this kind of, let's say, civilization, and their clothes, and their everyday traditions and everything. So Medea is a queen. She's a refugee, actually, and she's brought to marry Iasonas, Jason. So this is about 3000 to 1500 before Christ. This is where we start to document and research, and we have art, and we have customary habits. We have many different people: Babylonians, Assyrians, Persians, Sumerians, Medes, Scythes. I mean, there's so many. There's artifacts of these eras in many huge museums. They should be in their place, but they're in Europe, as you know. Like the big door of Babylonia, let's say. So how do they first dress themselves, these people? Which are the most natural material? I think it's a question you could all answer. It's wool from the animals, cotton, animal skins, because they eat, animals are their food, and then they can use the leather, and then they can use the fur. So that's the first clothing we ever put upon us. So we have kings and queens and priests. So we have ritual costumes, again, if they have to do with priests, kings and queens. We have then, let's say, military in every era, soldiers with more complicated styles, and many metal, decoration, metal accessories. Always when I'm interested in military costume, and it's very interesting all through the ages, you will always connect military costume to the metal and to the accessories and the jewelry. If they had metal to make armory, the same time they had people to make jewelry. Think about that. It's a micro skill and a larger skill, but it's the same material, actually. So in all eras of great wars that's going to be happening, we have lots of jewelry also. So this is Mesopotamia. We have lots of fabric on the body. It's wrapping around the body. It's many more meters than we would like to have. The colors are not the best in this, that are actually colored in the probably in some kind of Photoshop. We have wool, cotton, and what is the most characteristic that you see here? This is like a sole, like a huge, this is layering, of course. Let's say 0.0 of layering, and lots of fringes. These are wool. So in this era, we connect a lot with the fringes everywhere, different kinds. And you see this character here that is a priest, and it's many times in films that have to do with Christ. And these hats that they wear, Medea was wearing something like that. And this is a very symbolic hat, having such large decoration on your head. And they have very, very detailed beards. Also, their hair and the beards of the men are styled. So this is something that is more, this is the first, I would say this is the first. This is an image you should have. So we move to ancient Egypt, and I choose, hopefully, Queen Cleopatra somehow. There's many films until now. They keep on making films about her. But we will say that Elizabeth Taylor, and the film that had like 70 costumes about, was a Hollywood film, is the most iconic. Of course, she was more made to look like a contemporary queen. And the films that followed with Cleopatra, they were more natural. They had the question, how were the costumes then? And they made them a bit more simpler. But she was let's say she was the real queen. So it doesn't want to. So this is a dictionary of costume, very common. It's the most simple dictionary of costume. All the images are online. So this is how costumes in general were. This is images that you probably know from somewhere else. They had very nice jewelry also. The Egyptians were the first, that had to do with pharmacy and chemicals. So their makeup also was very developed. And they valued the cleanness of the body very much. So many times they would wear wigs. They would prefer that if it's very hot, I would be more clean if my head is clean, and then I have a wig to wear. And we could connect to something that is totally our times, and it would happen like that. I have to tell you that images that I put here doesn't mean that I like them. I'm making connections. We all need to have a critical thinking if this is something that we like in fashion. It's quite extreme. I mean, you can wear it even to go somewhere. But this is what happened. So somebody was inspired. It has nothing to do with theater, but it's here to show the inspiration that we could have. So I'm sorry. I'm correct here. Great. So let's just see it again. Ancient Egypt, linen and cotton. They love white. It's airy, it's transparent, it's sacred. They preferred the cotton and the linen to the wool because wool needed really hard work to be cleaned. Most of the times, the upper body was naked to both men and women. You have to think that before Byzantium and before religion as we know it today, having a body that's exposed meant nothing to them, actually. So lots of jewelry, lots of gold, blue, stones, and their makeup. I think they love blue. They are masters of chemistry. They make wigs. And of course, it's the era of mummification. So anything that has to do with makeup and chemistry goes together. And which are the colors in this era? Sorry, 1 second, I'm out of here. There we are. The colors are for Egypt. If we want to be characteristically for Egypt, white, blue, gold, dark red, and lots of animal prints on animal skins because they use them a lot, and if it's a symbol of always of for the kings. So the men that were more naked, a word that is very characteristic in this era is the senti, and they wear it around the waist. It's some kind of covering, some kind of underwear, let's say, the first one to exist. And it was really decorated according to your social status. So it was totally plain white, or it could be very decorated, of course, if you were a king. So before moving, because we're going to go to ancient Greece, let's think about the word of costume, in English at least. So costume, it derives from the custom. So it's something that's every day. So it's according to your times, what you're wearing. But clothing is a word that I really like because it's more practical clothing. That's why we don't use it so much, but it's the same. So costume, usually we attribute specific characteristics. So this is for later. So costume is not an ancient word anyway. It's from the Latin, but usually it's what is normal for the era, okay? What we use. Think of it like that. So ancient Greece. This is a film of Alexander the Great. Wonderful costume, not a good film. but the costumes are very nice. And here is another interpretation of how more modern it could be of an ancient Greek costume. It's by a Greek designer. Unfortunately, she died very young, Sofia Kokosalaki, and she created in London. And her work around ancient Greece, both costumes and jewelry, was amazing, very important. Unfortunately, she died very, very young a few years ago. So this is an ancient Greek costume, chiton. The ancient Greeks had this amazing way of not sewing anything. They would weave the pieces they wanted and they would dress. They would have pins and they would have strings, but they didn't sew anything together. Unlike the Romans that had similar clothing, but they liked to have them in pieces and in patterns and just sew them together. So let's say this is a dress that has survived a lot, until Byzantium era. Even this long dress, even in traditional costumes, even sometimes in religious costume. And I would have to say that for me, all these kind of costumes are the exact meaning of what today, many times we refer to the word moulage, meaning that we just dress a body and we make a costume on it, and we don't come out with the patterns first. So have a look, all these costumes. So I always have the era before the images, and every time we change something here, meaning we change the era. So all these images are pieces of fabric put together. They were put together with pins and belts, and they were not made from the beginning. And of course, they had colors. Their colors relate very much. They are natural colors. They're the first colors that people could make from the yellow, the red, and the blue, from seashells, and from various pigments, and from various plants like the yellow, from saffron, from walnuts. So these are the first colors that we see also in Egypt, also in Greece, in Crete also. Somebody, okay, I managed, sorry, to mute. So this is another image that I hope you all know. It has to do with ancient Greek theater masks and ancient Greek theater, comedies and tragedies. If you're doing the stage design workshop, you have a lot of information from there also. But here is a point that I go back to my first, let's say, image, and I'm saying, when are we dressing for the first time for theater? So we are playing something. We are a part of a theater, of a story. So are we disguising ourselves? There's a question mark there. Do we want to be somebody else? A mask can help, a costume can help. Are we criticizing what is going on with the comedies and the tragedies? Are the tragedies more close to rituals and to some kind of religion? Are the comedies more to criticize everyday situations? So in ancient Greece, where we believe that everything started related to theater, it was a ritual and it was a social activity. But yes, there were some kind of costumes. So historically, if you search, a point zero of a theater costume would be Thespis. So he was a Greek poet. He had plays. He performed. It's about 6th century before Christ. And they would like to wear long robes. So robe is an English word. Actually, it's not English, it's French. So robe means dress. So we would say a long dress meaning for men, for women, right? So they were long and they would like to really spend money and decorate them to use them in these plays. And they were called the robes of Thespis. So when they were creating an event, they really like to make something specific for theater. So this is an image that if you saw it for the first time, you might say, oh, yes, this is something very close to something ancient, but it's something, he's a well-known stage and costume designer, Greek. He makes theater and he teaches theater, but he's done costumes and stage design in the whole of Europe. And he especially likes the mask. And the mask is something he has developed a lot for the characters. So a mask, you must understand, is part of a costume, and it unifies expression, it unifies feelings, and not being able to see like a common face makes things larger. So the idea of wearing a costume in these times was to be larger than life. I mean, even now you would do it, but in ancient times, even more. So if I would just find an image that's closer, don't see the details, just the whole idea. And this is a contemporary dance school of London. So it might have total different materials. It might have different designs, different ways, but they are very, sorry. They could be very close to something like that. So you have to slowly embrace how inspiration works and how the images that we see will make us create things. So we are here. So in ancient Greece, so here we were just saying that something is totally contemporary and it's very close to something very ancient. So I'm just moving, even though it's not a very good image, it's just something that is actually portraying that there are some festivities like ancient Greece, because we're going to be talking about the other eras soon. So you see that they have some relationship. You can see it has to do with theater or play because they have some relationships. So this is in these ancient times, in Greece, in Rome, this is where we find that things were going on that actually have to do with theater. So this is Rome now. After Greece, there's always Rome. So here you see costumes that are very similar to ancient Greek costumes. Here, one series, I don't know if you ever encountered it, and I don't know where it exists right now, because even in Greek television, it was some years ago, many years ago, 5, 6, I don't know. It's a BBC series that have to do with Atlantis. And the costumes are very nice. Lots of variations for everybody. I think it's one of the most important views that we could have of Rome, if we ever did. Now, I cannot say what play you would do that had to do with ancient Rome, but we're passing through everything. So there's many images that have to do with ancient Rome and fully nicely decorated. So this is very good area of research. So you can see, and you must know, that Rome was after Greece and did not like simplicity, not in the buildings, in architecture in general, not in decoration. I think gold was the favorite color of Rome. And even though costumes might be seeing the same like Greece, there's so many meters wrapping around here and in so different ways, and they would have to make their costumes actually. So they had 2 layers in Rome. So this was their basic costume. See how easy this is. This is something I would still say it's a long chiton, as we say in Greek. And it's something we still have it until just before medieval times, even in medieval times, for men and women. And it's this easy to make. We will go back to these when we have to do with patterns. So another representation that has to do with theater again. Very few mosaics like that. And what do you actually see here? You see again people interacting, having some kind of rehearsals. He's wearing a mask, playing some music. It's probably a man in a woman's costume because women were not allowed to perform back then. Here are some masks that resemble the one I showed you. He's dressing up here. It's clearly that they're dressing up for something. So these are the areas that we find some information that people started dressing up. You see the chat? Okay, it didn't change probably. We should be laughing all together. So let's go back. So are we here at ancient Rome?
No, we're at Contemporary Dance School London picture.
This is crazy. This is only one back. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Let's see what's going on again. I'm getting out of here. Okay. I'm going to go say change the slide every time. So you tell me. 1 second. Let's go back. We haven't mastered the Zoom after so many years. Okay. It should be here. Is it changing now?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay. If you hear me talk strange things, please tell me. So I'm going to, okay, great. So these are the images I was saying that they're not so good. They're not many. This is one, and I need you to see the relation. And this is the other. These two are from ancient times, Greek and Roman, and they are actually showing us some people that have to do with some kind of festivities. So they are dressed up, they're wearing a mask, they're holding some things, they're having some relationship between them, like rehearsing or something. And I was talking about this, which is Rome. And please note, these are the BBC series about Atlantis. And they're wonderful. They're over decorated, over. If somebody needed to see ancient Rome costumes, this is where they would go. So you see how similar they are to Greek, but they're more wrapped around. They are layered. The one thing I didn't say is that the ancient Greeks, many times, their whatever they wore was quite transparent. The same with Egyptians. They would like to see the body. They took really good care of their body, so they would like to see it. But in Rome, no, they would like to cover it. So they wear at least 2 layers of clothing. You need to remember that. So this might remind you of Mesopotamia also. So Mesopotamia, clothing, and here they had layers, 2 to 3. And okay, this is the simple chiton dress, long dress, men, women. It survives until many thousands years later. Here it says like 5th century BC, so meaning about Byzantine times also, much more decorated then. It's changing, right? So we are back to the mosaic or of the Roman theater rehearsals, let's say. I think it's very interesting mosaic, very, very interesting. There's masks. Here, there's a man probably dressed like a woman with a mask and flowers, as you can see. They're dressing up here. He's wearing, the one on the left, you see they're wearing probably something made of wool or an animal. And he's wearing probably a mask that's an animal here. So this whole thing represents that there was theater at those times. And sorry, 1 second. It's here. So the first theater that we know in Europe, that's a street event. It's an outdoor theater. And I cannot say if they're wearing costumes, especially for them. They're wearing masks for sure. It's comedy, always, commedia, the word says it, and they're very characteristic. So the masks here have a very, very important costume. These are events happening outside. They're going from one city to the other. And the characters of all the stories are the same. So we have specific 5, 6, 7, 8 characters. So they're wearing the same masks, not the same costumes so much, but they're wearing the same masks in order that the people, the audience, knows who they are. So this is very important here. They're wearing half masks just to be able to move and talk more easily. So here we are. We're following Byzantine times. So after Rome, we are following here the times in Byzantium, where if we can have something characteristic of the costumes, has to do with the wonderful mosaic and has to do with patterns and costumes that you already know. It's not so new what you're seeing as the forms, but they are over decorated with a lot of gold, a lot of stones. And in Byzantine eras, they needed the jewelry so much that you can understand it was almost impossible that these are real stones. So they made a lot from glass. So most of these things that you see are made a lot of glass. And here we have headdresses everywhere. The jewelry resembles a lot to ancient Egypt. As you can see, I'm pressing to move. Great. So disappearance is my word. Why? Here is the point zero from being without a very specific religion to something very specific. And it ordered that the body had to be covered. So this is the basic clothing. It's called the Dalmatian tunic. It's a long dress. It's like the ancient Greeks or Romans, or in Egypt also. The sleeves are wide. You see how simple this clothing is, but it's a very important pattern. It's the basic for all religious costumes that we have now. I think our Orthodox priests wear the exact forms. And also, it is something that has survived until today as the basic costume in traditional costumes, in men and women. So traditional costumes, their shirts, their dresses have this shape. So in the era of the Byzantine times, it's very rich fabrics. They're heavy, brocade, this embroidered here. And now we have advanced in all our materials. We have wool and velvet and linen and silk, everything actually. It's very important. The decorations are more important than the shape. We don't have much patterns here or specific shapes for men and women, but we have a lot of patterns. So something very symbolic. We have a lot of crosses. The Byzantine crown, as I said before, is very specific. And usually all this neckline here is covered with jewelry. Large glass stones. I need to go back. So here, all this is Empress Theodora. So you can see her dress. You can see here the mosaic. So most important in this era were the jewelry and not the costumes. One more forward now. Great. So we have contemporary designers. What do? They do easy things and difficult things, meaning with all the technology that we have today, sometimes they just print things. So they take original images, original artwork, and they print something. I cannot say this is something so difficult. But as these specific designers, they love the extravagant of the era. They're making crowns and jewelry even more detailed than the original ones. But in my opinion, just printing another era on a modern clothing. The first who did it, okay, but it's not something important right now. But you might need to print a specific symbol. You might need to print it for a theater purpose. That's another, I would say that's another point. And from Byzantine time, we move to many dark thousands of years to Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. Okay, so medieval times is an era you all know, you all love. It's the Gothic era, and it's the era in hundreds of films and hundreds of series that you've seen in the last years. And it's also in all the storytelling. All the well-known storytelling and myths are here. So we have queens and kings and myths from Disney to common series. The last years we had so many nice series, but you have to think like, and I think the costumes and the representation of the designs, of the stage design. The first Roman one, yes. Panos, you are right. I'm reading your, I have to stop and read. Totally different, the fashion. It's like interior design and stage design. Yes, we have types of characters. I'm going so fast, this history of costume, that I'm leaving out things you must understand. Hopefully later we will go back but in general, we have more, let's say, written written information, I would say yes. Then we have images, and we have lots of interpretations from many scholars, and very, according to theater, I mean, that what was going on. And each time I make a presentation according to things that are really in the past, as one famous scholar said, and most of the researchers say, we were not there and we don't know. So many things, we don't know if they existed or somebody wrote about it. But in general, our art is very rich. And for the ancient times, we have mosaics, we have vases, we have drawings, and all the information is the aesthetic information. More is put together from there. So let me go back here to this wonderful dark Middle Ages. They're called the Dark Ages. There's lots of centuries, even more. And actually, it's the eras of the great wars all over Europe. And they're the era that connect the ancient times with the contemporary world. After Renaissance, we believe that we're coming close to the contemporary world. So there we are, the Middle Ages. If you've never heard, or if you've never been close to these ages, I will talk again later. I saw in the chat about the film characters and the fashion. Fashion is practical, like architecture and interior design, they are practical. Stage design, accordingly, and theater costume design are there for a purpose always. They dress a character or they dress a space, and they express very specific things. Film characters follow this because they are part of a specific story and a specific aesthetic of somebody's story. So if you are an architect or an interior designer, you could easily pass, if you study theater, to being a stage designer. If you're a fashion designer and you can put all your studies and knowledge to work, you might be able to create characters and do costume design. It's not always possible, but you're closer as anybody can be. So these wonderful medieval times, what is their characteristic? Here are queens and princesses and kings. This hat is very characteristic. Here, it's the fairy tale hat. Even if you've seen Disney stories only, you should know. You see how these medieval characters here are dressed? Even if you've seen Snow White, this is how the queen of Snow White would dress. And this is one characteristic. This is a costume from a fashion designer, of course. And she is dressed, even this thing is totally shiny and in sequins and a material that is very contemporary. In contrast, she is actually dressed, and this is a headdress of a warrior, something like this, something you would wear under a helmet. And the question also with these fashion shows is, would they wear it? It's not pret-a-porter, okay? They don't wear it in the morning. Many times there's management reasons in the fashion shows. There has to be a huge event, and people have to talk about it. And we have social media now, so imagine. But this is the time where the designer most expresses themselves. And then they go on and think, okay, now, which pieces can be part of our everyday lives? We do. So another thing, here is a maiden, as Pano says, another thing that is happening with theater of costume and theater of dress and I mean, the whole history, you have to think, what images do we know and what did painters paint? Unfortunately, mostly the upper class. So many times we don't have information until photos appear, which is something very, very modern. We don't have information of things that are more simple. So you can see that this costume on the right, related to this costume here, of course, this is more everyday. And they even have a small bag. These are the small pouches and bags that first appeared to carry what? Maybe a key, maybe something for emergency. I have to tell you that, Boyana, it's evergreen. I don't know in which movie. Unfortunately, I thought it was written, but I will tell you in the end. So I'm moving. So there's a film in the recent years. Panos can answer that. Evergreen in which movie, Pano? I'm sure he can. So here, these are wonderful costumes. Wonderful costumes. They are modern. It's a Black Panther costumes. It's a film from an African designer. And they have so many nice details from medieval times. If you've never heard, you have to research it. I think I have another one here. No, I have another one a bit later because they have details from about many eras. Sorry, people with your mute. Okay, here we are. Today I'm from this computer I'm managing. I'm sorry, I'm muting you. So, oh God. Okay, great. So we're gonna be going. Costume history, yes. The images that I show you a lot is from John Peacock's dictionary, Dictionary of Western Costume. If somebody can write this down, Dictionary of Western Costume, and it's all the sketches that you see, and we will be seeing a lot. So today you have to understand, I'm running a bit through the whole history of costume. It's a bit crazy, but I'm running through so you have some images to relate to, and then we will go back and we will go closely in each era, in each costume, how we make them, how we relate to it. So, Camelot series, bravo, Pano. Wonderful. Anyway, the costumes from those series are amazing. It's not all the films that are good, and it's not all the films that have good costumes and good representation of the eras. You must understand that. And I'm still saying that the best era films were from the 90s until 2010 about, and they're still around. Netflix makes us some gifts and is putting back some films. So not all the films. So I'm just showing you here. I need you to see something because even if you're making costumes, some of you are, you need to understand that as difficult as something might be, it is always based on something more simple. So which is the characteristic of the medieval times? It's this wonderful sleeve. Looks like an Asian sleeve, of course, but this is the sleeve. Okay, so if we want to have a pattern of this sleeve, what we would do? We would base it on the body of the actor, and we would base it on a normal shirt, and then we would go on to make a pattern like this. So everything is based on what we already know regarding. Let me change. There we are. So please, medieval times until now. So all of you have an idea. All of you, even if you've never related to costume. So these are medieval times here. Here we're moving forward a bit. These are 16th century Renaissance costumes. This is moving on. This is closer here to Baroque, to Rococo. This is eras we're going to discuss. And this is something much closer to what you know. But if I asked somebody, what costume is this? 1350. Which well-known character would this be?
Robin Hood.
Wonderful. This is the answer. It's symbols. The symbols are so strong. The symbols are so strong. What would this character be?
Captain Hook.
Bravo. Of course.
And the previous one could be also Peter Pan.
This one. No.
The first one that we were asked.
This one, not so much, but it's from the same.
The second one.
Oh, Peter Pan. Yeah, we
Yeah.
said Peter Pan. Yes, great. Okay, so where do I go back to? You have to see Peter Pan and to know the characters. Unfortunately, we have to see the films. What other way? Unless we study for 5 years. So I'm going back and forth. Why? In all our cultures, and we are many in this room here, in all our cultures. I don't have something from Greece today, but I will do it another time. Our first time we ever dressed up would be for some kind of event, some kind of ritual, and we would have costumes and we would like to praise something, or we would like to turn something out. We would like evil to go away, so we would have costumes like this. So in medieval Europe, we would have lots of costumes that look like this. And I think everybody relates. We have them in northern Greece. We have them in the Balkans. We have them in many countries. We have them in Africa for sure. I'm going to be showing you other things. So keep this in mind, please, because a question I would like to place in the end is if in your country and your area, you have some kind of these costumes. I had a student a few years ago, and her father still makes in northern Greece, in Xanthi, he still makes accessories for these kinds of costumes, metal accessories for the head, for the bells here that you see. Renaissance. Wonderful. We're coming closer to the real word. So, Renaissance, what would the word say? We are rebirth. We are being born again. So it's a very important era. It is focused more, if we have to do with costumes and films. And in this history, it's focused a lot with the Elizabethan period and the Shakespeare period. So let's say about 16th century, 1500 to 1600. And there's 2 films of Kate Blanchett, Elizabeth and Elizabeth the Golden Era, that could not be more creative in their costumes and their representation of the characters. Could not actually be more creative. So in each era, we have something characteristic that many times designers, costume designers would use it in contemporary times. What would that be? Here is the color, Elizabethan color. It's a very funny word that we still use it, even if we have to put something around our dog, we still say Elizabethan color. So this is the characteristic of this period. Of course, the hair and many other things, but this color is the characteristic. And I think, again, like I would say about Cleopatra, she changes, especially the second film. I think both films got Oscars, the second for sure. So Renaissance, we are born again. It's a revival. All the times they come to, we had darkness, now we have light related to medieval times. So in Renaissance, we're not talking, of course, only costumes. We're talking in all the social community and all the arts, music, fashion, everywhere. So we are in an era where things are bright, the fabrics, the colors, they are decorated, they are embroidered, the paintings are amazing, and the headdresses are styled with pearls, with feathers. And here we have the first appearance of the women's corset that stayed with us for a long time. It's contradictory if it was a good or a bad element, but the corset is not something that appears here for the first time. The corset is a form that we all saw for the first time in armory. So it may have been in men. Here now it appears to women. So the whole shape of the corset, remember that, it derived from the armory and from the warriors. So here it's the first actual times that somebody's talking. Sorry. So here we are for the first time in an organized environment. So we are referring to costumes and dressmaking as we would know it today. So we have design, patterns, sketches, we have seamstresses and tailors. So everything that has to do with making an outfit or a dress or a costume is organized for the first time. I'm going back to your to the Black Panther film. It's not very many years. You have to find this film, and it's combining African influences. It's combining elements like here from many eras. I cannot put them spread out everywhere, but you can imagine that this is something you've seen in Mesopotamia more. This is something very traditional also with the strings. And let me see if I'm correct. Yes. So this is a contemporary Druid pagan mask, Druids, you know, the Druids that live in the woods and are a medieval times, myths and stories. So see how this is very well connected to something like this. We need from each era, and that's why we're going to go very slow with the eras. Afterwards, we need to know which characteristics and are very expressive and why we place them on a costume, and why would we place something like this, let's say, in a costume character. Why we would put a hat in a character, why we would put something like this on a queen. So here we are, something very from pagan rituals. We don't even see the face. It's like wearing a mask. Very raw material. Relates to the woods and the animals. Sorry, my name disappeared again here. Not that you don't know who I am, but our Zoom account. Here we are. So one more, we changed. Still the Elizabeth film. Here are the men's costume. We saw before a bit of his, the outline. So here we have the collar again, the Elizabethan collar, long dress. But what could you understand from such a drawing? And how much do you understand from actually watching a film or somebody wearing a costume? This is also the sad thing about theater. If you don't see the costumes worn by actors and active on a theater play, if you see them by themselves, they're just, we would say, dead. So here we have, imagine this and this. He's wearing his cape. And as time, and this is a time that the men look very modern also, meaning their heads. So this is from a play we did 2 years ago. And this was a play that in 2 hours, we had to go through 5 different eras. We said that it was the most difficult thing that happened for us at that time. So it's theater. What can we do for the spectator? Some audience told us the nicest things I've ever heard was that we actually connected to the eras and we could smell the eras. And there were 5 from the beginning of the play until the end. It started in Renaissance and it ended in the 20th century. So how could you achieve something like that? You would only achieve it by being able to actually have such symbolic yes. You're always dressing a character according to his character and the way he expresses feelings. Take this personally if you want. According to your personality, you dress in a specific way. So you need to actually think of it like this way. So you're dressing the character of the story. If it's a mean character, if it's a good character, if it's a pretty character, you could have a pretty actor and they have to look really ugly. And I think you've seen that in many films. And yes, you could make anybody beautiful, in my opinion. So the only way you can achieve in being able to have some kind of an era, and these are very difficult eras, you could only do this through elements of costume. So if you had these colors here, they are all Renaissance. If you have this kind of hat, could be medieval, could be Renaissance, it's close there. It has to do with the character here. So there's no other way. Theater doesn't have many means to do that. I'm trying to change. So, this is a wonderful image that has to do with the procession of characters in a Renaissance play. So, again, it's very interesting because you are seeing connections here, one with the other. So they're actually doing something. They are rehearsing. This is not just some painting or some drawing. They have specific relationship and it's Renaissance. And back here, you have a donkey. If it's Renaissance, it's probably Shakespeare. So there's a donkey back here, which we know, there it is in Midsummer's Night Dream, let's say. So this could be this could be 12th Night, this could be, so it's just many characters here. And if we talk about them, we could find a space for them in each of the plays. So give me 1 second, please. Oh, sorry. That was wrong for me. I'll just go back 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay. Or I'm just gonna go back. I don't know how. Okay. Okay, you can see this, right?
Yeah.
Eh? Can you see the same thing?
Yes, Mika.
Okay,
Yes, it's perfect.
Yes,
Great.
but in form PowerPoint presentation,
Oh,
not
there.
a full screen.
Okay, now it's okay, I think. Great.
The same.
Okay, the same. Ah, it hasn't
same.
changed. Okay, 1 second. It has to do it in a, I'm gonna stop again. Okay, stop. No, it's recording. Okay, sorry, let's do this again. All right. Is it full screen now?
No.
Ah, 1 second. Let's see. As if we did something different. We didn't. Okay, I'm gonna do this from there. Still not full screen?
Yes, still.
Ah.
Φαίνεται ότι το κάνει, αλλά πάει να το κάνει και μετά ξαναγυρίζει.
Okay, this is very strange because as if I didn't do anything before. I'm gonna try another way. 1 second. You cannot meet me. I'm Zoom. Okay. I need to put you on the side here.
Βέβαια, ωραίο είναι και αλλιώς.
Yeah, it's not. I don't like it so much. We will see. I'm gonna open it in another. I closed it and open it again. That might do it.
Μήπως
Okay,
δεν είναι σε
maybe.
διάταξη προβολής.
Όχι, δεν είναι. Είναι κανονικά. Είναι κανονικά. It has to do with something else. Okay, let's try again. How about this time?
It's the same.
Okay. Accelerate. I need to get out of here. Screen sharing, okay. It's somewhere opened again, that's why. Otherwise, we'll just stay there. Yeah, I think now I found it. Nothing?
Είναι το ίδιο.
It's the same. Okay. Anyway, we won't have time to finish it. There's another 40 pages here. So problem is that it would stop, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. So I'm just gonna see what you're seeing actually. I'm gonna make it a bit bigger. And
Είναι ωραίο. It's nice.
yeah, it's just too mesmerizing here. We will start next time from here. So we will go because there's another, they're like 80 and we still have time for them. So Renaissance. So after here, and all these characters that are for sure theater and in this era, we are moving to the most extravagant era that we have, mostly expressed from in theater and in films. And this is the Baroque era from 1600 to 1700. And this is an iconic film. It was only seen like for a week in Athens, amazingly. It's on Disney Channel or Apple TV or somewhere somebody can find it, or online if you're good enough. It's called Vatel. Most amazing actors, most amazing costumes, and there couldn't still be, let me see, yes. Sorry again, here we are. So this era is quite dark and it's after Renaissance. So we are going back to like medieval times that are dark, Renaissance that is totally bright, and then again, this most extravagant era that really loves deep colors in paintings also. And everything is quite larger than life. And I keep telling that this is the time of the oversized clothing, especially men. All their clothing is, we would say that if we make them today, they're about 2 sizes up. The interesting part are the wigs. The wigs are in natural color, in total contrast with Renaissance, that the hair is always blonde and just put nicely around the head. And what would the characteristic be? Trying. So what is the word Baroque? If you searched, Baroque is an uneven pearl. And so the whole era is quite uneven. There's the element of surprise always. The costumes are heavy and the wigs are in natural colors. There's ribbons and frills everywhere from top to bottom, especially the men, I will say again. So if we had a man and we thought that the character looked like a rooster or a peacock, the right era for us would be Baroque. So ribbons and frills, hats, clothes, shoes, everywhere. And the amazing fabrics are velvet, taffeta, silk, and brocade. Lots of embroidery. The waist is very high for women. So the clothing seems as if they have like a big, let's say, we say balloon for the sleeves, but I would say it for the skirt, as the waist is very high. And it's the age of the tapestries. So tapestries are made with stories and wonderful designs to cover most of the walls. If I didn't want to stop the recording, I would fix this. So same film here. I never talk of Baroque and I never show anything else. There are more films, of course, but if I wanted to be very detailed with the costumes, I'm here. So here we have the king, the brother of the king actually, and the lady in waiting of the queen. But look at the colors. These are close-ups just for the colors. And this is the image that I would like to talk to you. And keep a note of this. If you ever are curious about an era and you're not sure of what actually is happening and if it's correct, you will never look at the skirts. You will always look at the sleeves. So the sleeves are unique in Baroque. They're so large. And this is a sleeve that we will see again in the 80s. It's coming back now. And if it's a Baroque shirt or a Baroque outfit, the sleeves are very large, something like this in the contemporary era. And let me see, because I will stop with Baroque, I think, today. Yes, because I need more time about Rococo and I need some talk about the, so, the PDF. When I will send you the PDF because this thing is moving around. So this is a play almost 20 years ago in our theater. And these costumes have a characteristic of having 2 or 3 eras altogether. But their most characteristic was this, the sleeve. Sleeves were different, but I will show you the sleeve again here. So here were the sleeves and the very heavy textiles. And there were 9 characters on stage, and each character had 7 to 9 different fabrics in order to be expressed. And they all had their own color. So she had blue. These are not digital images, they're 20 years ago. This is a character that had black. Yes, something is going on with the, we're losing the, no, we don't need that. Sorry. So he had black and blue. He had about 7 different fabrics here too. And his characteristic was always the heavy sleeves. And the fabric manipulation was so detailed in order to create this idea of something very heavy. I'll go back to her. Same sleeves. And because Baroque is always an extravagant era, but always also an era of decadence. So here we thought that the characters, interesting question. So here the characters, the women characters, 4 of them, they had fake made out of papier-mâché. So their bosom here was fake and it looked see-through, but it was not their own. It was made up. One was silver, one was gold, and one was a different color in order for us to express. So different characters and different colors. I've never encountered a problem that a character, a specific actor, doesn't like the color they're wearing. So I don't know if this is philosophical, but if it's a play with 9, 10 more costumes, and you have to face the idea that you need, I showed you last time about the colors. So if you need to face the idea that you're choosing colors, you're expressing what's best. So this main character of this play, we will see her at some other time, she wore red. So if she wore red, then nobody else would wear red. So the other characters went around her. And it's never one color, so it's not possible that they wouldn't look good in it. I have to confess something. For me, the last 30 years, it's extremely hard for me. I think I've never put green on stage. Don't ask me why. Maybe dark green I did, but it never looked good or appropriate. So I don't know, it's a personal thing. I haven't analyzed it yet, but there's no way in a film or a theater play, think of anything you know, put any film you want. There's no way that the main character, 90% would not wear red, because we need to focus on them. Unless everybody wears white and somebody's wearing black, okay, we're focusing. So I don't know. I never thought that a color wouldn't look bad with somebody. And if an actor, actress ever told me that this doesn't look good or the color doesn't look good, I mean, I would be even mad about it. I'm very careful of what they wear. I'm very careful that the characters should be comfortable. And if something doesn't suit them for some reason, I would change it. So I don't know. Theater is tricky. Something that doesn't look good on theater, in films, it's a different story. But I have to tell you that something that really doesn't look good on theater is if somebody has blonde hair and it's not their natural, and the color is not correct, it's the worst thing you could have on stage with the lights. Unless you want a character that looks bad and then you would wear a wig that's blonde. But I can't think of anything else. Usually you create characters that, and I've never had this problem. That's a very interesting question. I'm thinking. I'll think more in the next lessons. So what I would really like to do, is Georgia with us today? She sent me a wonderful assignment, but I don't know if she's here. She didn't tell me something. Two people said they would be missing. But anyway, Georgia sent me a wonderful assignment. I cannot show it to you because she's not here, regarding Audrey Hepburn and Charlie Chaplin, especially about Breakfast in Tiffany's. So I would really ask you, I'm going to stop here 1 second, because we still have a lot of work with this. So I'm going to tell you what she did, actually. Before you all entered, we were only 5 here, and somebody was asking about the project. So I would really like you, if you didn't do it, just think about it and do some writing or some research. It's not a sketch. It's only research and writing and images. So what Georgia did, and if she's here next time, we're going to ask her, and I would like to show it for you. She talked about the character. She talked about what she thought about Audrey Hepburn, and then how the film kind of put everything upside down. And she did a really nice research about the film and the surroundings and how it interpreted, let's say, 60s and interior design. So, and she said this very important, that it's a time capsule film for design, for costumes. It's not that I didn't tell you on purpose, because I had the same reaction when I saw the film about, I think, 8-10 years ago. The 1960s are an amazing era, and it's an era that we use a lot. We use it it's just one generation before 2, let's say, but we use it a lot in theater. And it's something we should know well. And she did she counted how many different outfits Audrey Hepburn had, and she found images for them and described what the character was like in each scene. It was quite a lot of work. But if you have time for this workshop and you're really interested in costumes, I would suggest that you search a bit more, because one of the main problems that a designer has, it's not their ability to sketch. You could go take a class and learn how to sketch, but I'm trying to teach you to think, research, and combine many different images so you can create something new at some point in your life. And this takes some time. Drawing or playing music or going on a bicycle is a practical skill. You can be taught practical skills. And many people, there'll be people that sketch much better than other people, but you can be taught. So it's the thing that we cannot open your head and put things inside. So you need to research. And there's so much material out there, and you should be watching films, and you should be seeing fashion, and you should be watching. I mean, if we could have all attributes, we should know history of the theater, history of architecture, history of fashion. There's too much. We're just trying to capture the essence of it. And we are repeating that we love clothes and outfits, and dressing a character is easier to us and easier understanding to the audience than even stage design. Stage design is difficult. It's not so easy. So if I've received like maybe 6, I think, assignments, and I think someone is asking me to send it tomorrow or something. It doesn't have to be very long. I just need to know that you actually understood. And it's funny, I had a student there, I was telling my other students the same thing about Audrey Hepburn, and they said how the trailer of the film and all the images that were released at the beginning, somehow they never revealed the story. So if you didn't read the book, you had no idea. And I think it was made on purpose. So would somebody like to share something regarding these characters? Boyana.
Can I ask
Yes.
something?
Yes, please.
I want to thank you for the assignment. It's very interesting. I watched movie when I was a girl and in my teenage period, and maybe in my 20-something. But for me, this is just a bit of romantic comedy, something like that. What is it? A brief story of a movie. But when you told us to watch Why is Breakfast at Tiffany, so I did a research and I sent you my assignment. And
Yes.
because I'm a textile and graphic designer and also art teacher, it's quite easy for me to draw and not to write. So maybe assignment is much more elaborate with the links and with the text and don't have too much images. Because I didn't quite know, did we have much time or
Yes, but we could not actually sketch something new right now. We were more investigating.
This is a confusion because I thought we have to have our own view on this character, and when you read the synopsis of the story, you then realize this is about a very tragic character, not just lightning, shine, and happy.
Exactly.
And I know the Audrey Hepburn said in one interview, this is my quite the difficult role in the movie because I am an introvert and I play very extrovert character. And then when you look all the picture and you analyze, maybe I can do some more extra in the assignment and a little bit more me in the view of Holy Goliathi, because in the research I found so many links, and to me everything seemed important for the character, because the character are very complex and very layered. So maybe I will put some extra text to
Maybe you can keep it for yourself for still more time. And regarding your art background, you could interpret something and sketch something. Yes.
Okay. And I have one more question regarding today's lessons, and maybe it's a personal question
Yes.
to you. You told you didn't have in the past problem with the color on the set.
Yes.
But may I have asked, I didn't quite, how do I say that? I didn't quite, I have a personal problem when students ask me about some colors.
Yes.
I try to, because we do a lot of pattern sketches for the textile design. I always ask why, and I always try to have some explanation why just that color, and maybe there's a intimate style or personality overwhelming me in this decision, and how to suppress that. I ask it
Yes.
in professional manner.
I think that we have personal views of everything. So sometimes if some student is actually, being stuck with something, sometimes I think you have to do what you don't want. It's like in your normal life. It's very easy to do what you like. So have an assignment of something you do not like, actually.
Yeah, we have to have a bigger picture.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge. I don't know, because I spent some time in my life wearing a lot of green in many shades, but I never put it on stage. So I cannot explain to you. Next time, I will think again when I need green, unless I have to do a forest.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Who else is on the Pano? You think you will send it, but did you progress? Yes, please tell us. I just saw the hand. I'm sorry.
Well, the biggest fact that I came across the movie, I watched the movie. I have also watched so many Charlie Chaplin movies because my father was a fan. And I've also read the novel, The Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yes.
The biggest fact about the movie is that the producer didn't, and the ο σκηνοθέτης,
director.
They didn't want to dress Audrey Hepburn according to her character. They wanted to dress her, as her personality. And one of the very least movies that we come across, all cinema, that actually someone wants to dress an actor according to his everyday dressing. So the character is completely different from the image that we
From
come
the
across
book,
in the
you
whole...
say also, though, but in the film, maybe?
The book, yeah, and no, the character is very in contrast with the dressing. She's very clumsy, she's very mischievous, she's very weird, she's a fraud, as many times referred to.
In a good way.
And she's dressed like the best dressed French lady for all day long.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a very funny and a really, really, really funny comedy. Yeah.
management goes in there sometimes, and it's Hollywood.
Also, I wanted to say something about colors. Bojana said something earlier. The biggest thing that I have personally come across is that color never actually performs very well under some kind of lighting.
Sure.
So light and the environment, because if we have a stage and we put all the props together, we also may have like a painting or some bigger props, if it depends on the on the stage. But actually, because the props exist in a three-dimensional world, and because we have lots and lots of colors around, they tend to take a tint out of the colors and out of the light. So that's the most difficult thing, because you have to experiment so much under lighting.
Yes, and theater, there's theater and theater. You could be talking about a huge theater, like a national theater, and they might have very complicated stage design, and then you have hundreds of characters in front. And I showed you on the first presentation, you should actually go back on the first presentation. Imagine having too many colors at the back and too many colors in the front. That's the biggest challenge. In smaller theaters, if you want to be correct with the lighting and you have good lights, usually if there's too many costumes or too many colors, you will be smart enough to keep one color at the back. So you will be smart enough. And of course, you know that black works very well in the theater. The costumes I showed you today had black all around, black everywhere, no other, very little furniture, let's say, for design. I'm going to show you some pictures in a later times. But this year that we did a play that was quite white, it was very hard to do darker costumes, and the lights were wonderful, but sometimes you would take pictures and everything was burnt. So it's so difficult having lighter colors, like again in theater. So it depends where you are. What is the stage? Is it small? How close are the lights to the actors and to the stage design? Or is it a huge space and the lights are, I don't know, 30 meters away? So it's totally different. We are always thinking in relation, but that's one of the hard technical things later. We are trying to see how the costumes stand for the first time, and we should be analyzing. There's no way you can dress a person if you're not actually giving, if your eyes, you need a critical eye from the moment you wake up in the morning. So if you're not watching around you what's going on, if you're not watching the metro, if you're lost and you don't see, if you know how many people, would you ever find things? Because I keep finding things, because I know if somebody dropped something. So you have to watch for detail around you. If somebody put something inside out, or their clothes are hanging, or the bag is open in the metro, think about that. There's no way you can create art or clothes or put a costume on a person if you're not actually watching it. One of my challenges, again, about 10 years ago, is that I had two different women that one was quite tall, the other not so much, but they had too many kilos on them. We wanted the character like that. They were correct for the character. And there were funny characters. And okay, one had to be fully dressed. The other had to look not so dressed. So that was a huge, huge challenge. And she looked so good and she felt so good that she was extremely happy on stage. And it's not easy. We don't dress the tall and the slim ones anyway. So there are ways for everything, but there are challenges. And then the way we are with researching today is that we should be able to find things. But that's another thing that I'm trying also, that you need like 10 different keywords in order to find something that you like. So you might say, oh, Charlie Chaplin, it comes out the same images. Okay, now what do I do? You need to say Charlie Chaplin, what film? Maybe Charlie Chaplin, what Robert Downey Jr. did. You might want to find sketches, or you might need to find the costume designer. When you first search for something, Google is the best for me first, and then Pinterest. Pinterest has really false details. It doesn't have the correct dates, and many times it's different eras. But you want to find something, you need 10 different keywords. It's not easy. So you might need the character, then you say, okay, do I need this character in blue, let's say? So this is a bit never ending. And there are always questions. So from now on, when we finish this history of costume also, this part, next time we will finish it next Wednesday. Then we start the eras very detailed, and we connect eras and theater, eras and specific plays, specific characters. So that's the only way that we could have an understanding. So, and I know many of you here, most of you, I think that the biggest percentage has something to do, either art, fashion design, you're somewhere around, graphic design, from what I know. So please, if somebody would like to ask, add, say something else, we are done for today. Quiet silence and really quietness from everybody.
I have another one.
Yes.
Also, at the end, when every movie finishes the cinematography, they go to the post-production. They always retouching the clothing. I came across two really nice big books about the new Batman portrayed by Robert Pattinson and Dune. And in these huge books, they had the costumes, and the color is completely different from the color we see.
Yes.
And many details, sometimes they add details digitally, and they create them with VFX. And
yes, they do.
It's so hard to do. And I came across so many videos saying how the costume designer needs to help in the post-production by being smarter and trying to have a more muted color sometimes, because they change the filters.
But
in the camera.
the art director can touch the screen and change the colors. I mean, now times. And
yes, they do it in time, yes, but it's also very difficult in the post-production. I know that graphic designers, they are not magicians. They need to be helped by the costume designer, by all of the other designers. Sometimes if something is not shot well, or if the fabric is not looking good, they cannot be magicians and fix it.
No, that's true. That's true. And I when we talk about Hollywood movies, you must understand, I mean, it's a huge industry, okay? And last year, I learned something that I didn't know. I thought, okay, you have maybe 2 costumes for each character. Okay, maybe something happens, whatever. No, Hollywood movies, I don't know if you've ever heard in your life, they have 4 sets of costumes. 4. Meaning what? Meaning
not always.
That 4.
Excuse me, not always. In the Lord of the Rings, they had more than 10 for each actor.
I was going to say that, because the whole production is going to spend so much money that if something happens, that they are delayed for any reason, they have so many. I mean, it's amazing. So this is a whole big story. But also the movies, if you've watched movies for a long time, you have to understand something. They go up to a point and they say, okay, era films, and they make them look very nice, like the first Cleopatra. She was very nice. Elizabeth Taylor would wear heels. She would wear corsets. She would do anything to look well. So, okay, the costumes were inspired by Egypt, but maybe actually in Egypt, they couldn't have so complicated costumes. So years later, they made some series with other actors for television, whatever, for Cleopatra. And there they decided, no, the concept is different. When we are in everyday costumes or clothes and we are in the palace or running around, it's going to be more than what we think is real. So the people were half naked. They wore nothing inside. They wore no shoes. They were without shoes going around. And that was closer to reality. Also, another important thing that they did in the last 10 years when you're seeing, of course, they can digitally alter, but you will see era films and they will seem really dark to you. And you will say, what is happening here? The light is not very good. And they're doing it on purpose because they're saying, oh, we're doing a Western and we would like to represent how it really was. So they had no electricity. What did they have? They have oil lamps and petroleum lamps. And where was the light coming from? From the windows. So it's like a physics experiment. And they have much less light and the shadows are huge. And there it's a total different thing of what is going on with actually the costumes. And now, of course, you have black and white films coming back, okay? So Ripley is on Netflix. If you have Netflix, watch Ripley. So it's a black and white movie. Right now, I think a costume designer doing a black and white movie would be his biggest challenge ever. He would like to see, what can I put there? What pattern will I put? How will they look? So it's the black and white films are going to be a whole chapter, I think. So I have to wish for a happy Easter for us that's coming. It's a bit more quiet weeks. It's nice. Somebody either said goodbye or asked something. Thank you, Boyana. Thank you, everyone. We will meet next Wednesday, same time. We will continue with this same presentation. And please, if you have any interest in the characters, I would like for you to continue.